So coming up in the middle of April, on the 17th of April 2019, we have the Indonesian general election, and we have an Indonesian correspondent, Evan, who is going to fill us in on some of the background this week, and this is going to be like a recurring segment up until the election happens. What would you like to tell us about the history of the parties? I know very little about your politics, sadly. So could you fill me in?
Unfortunately, trying to summarize what is, I think, now 74 years of Indonesian history post-independence is a little bit tricky. But I'm going to try to give the basic highlights very quickly, and then I'm going to get into more of the meat of what's been going on for the past 5 years since the incumbent has won his first election in 2014. So 350 years the Dutch were, they colonized the Dutch East Indies, which became Indonesia. The Japanese took over in 41. They left in 45. Indonesia declared independence. The Dutch got mad, and they fought for 4 more years until the UN told them, take your ball and go home. Let them be a sovereign nation. And then we had the first president, Sukarno, was president from 45 to 67, until there was a coup in 1965, where he basically just lost all power, and the coup itself didn't go well, but he was ousted anyway. And it was blamed on the Communist Party. And then Suharto, one of his generals, I believe, became the new president, and he lasted for 31 years until there was another set of riots in 1998, which is also bloody and lots to unpack there. And then we have 2 presidents who lasted less than 2 years each, I think, or maybe 3. They're not particularly politically relevant here, so I won't mention their names. And then we had the 5th president, Megawati, who is still active in politics, and so I will refer to her later. And SBY, who served 2 full terms for 10 years, and he's still active in politics. And finally, we have our incumbent, Jokowi Dodo, also known as Jokowi, and I will be referring to him as such, who in 2009, I believe, he was the mayor of a town in central Java called, Java is one of the islands of Indonesia. I forget that I have to mention things like this. He's the mayor of a town called Surakarta, or Solo. No idea how the names are correlated. But he basically cleaned up corruption. He was a prime example of a good politician in a country where the word politician is so tied with corruption. From Suharto's regime and from all of the nepotism and all the cronyism that involved in the past 50 years of just people vying for political power and not really caring for the small man, Jokowi did. And so on that platform, he became the governor of Jakarta, which is its own special province, the capital city province, a little bit like how Washington, D.C. is its own special province, except Jakarta does have voting rights and seats in the parliament. And that was in 2012, and his vice president, who his nickname is Ahok, is also politically important, so I will be referring to him later. But they won in 2012, and Jokowi immediately went on to win the presidential election in 2014. And he's been president ever since. He's running for re-election in April. His running mate is very interesting, because I said Jokowi's gubernatorial his vice governor Ahok was politically important, but Jokowi's current vice presidential running mate is probably one of the people who put Ahok in jail. This is a fairly long story, but to sum it up, Ahok is a Chinese-Indonesian Christian in a city and in an island and in a country that is very much Muslim, and on an island that is very much Javanese. It's Java, after all. And politics has been dominated by Muslim Javanese since the Suharto regime. And he was also sort of a bold, brash figure who took names and didn't care for everybody's nonsense and political maneuvering and corruption. And he rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, but he also got a lot of stuff done. So he was fairly popular. During his re-election campaign for governor in September of 2016, he made a comment that if you took it the wrong way, seemed to slight the Quran, and a video that was proved to be doctored, pushed this narrative further, and he was, and immediately after there was this immensely long trial for like up until May after that election finished, and the Muslim clerics, the reason he got jailed on blasphemy charges for 2 years was that the Muslim clerics and the people on social media that were pushed by Muslim clerics and a lot of propaganda pushed so hard for him to be jailed. There's a lot of conspiracy theory here. Some of that is probably propaganda, but one of the highest ranking clerics at the time was a man named Maruf Amin. He was this sort of I think he's sort of a fairly moderate figure in the establishment, but he's still like moderate for a Muslim cleric. And I need to look at my notes here because there's two big organizations, and if I get wrong which one he's in, I'm in trouble. Muhammadiyah, and Muhammadiyah is one of the more of the two big ones is the more sort of modernist organization. And the other one, NU, is more of the traditionalist, more the one supported in during the Suharto regime. These two organizations are very big in sort of the political sphere, as you can imagine. It's a bit like the Catholic Church being dominant in Poland. These are the two big Muslim organizations in Indonesia, and they both support Jokowi, but there was a lot of the other smaller Islam groups and a lot of the extremist and sort of Islamist, I believe is the term, groups support the other team, and this is where I go into the other team. His presidential opponent, Jokowi's presidential opponent, is a man named Prabowo Subianto, formerly a high-ranking general in the Indonesian army. He was dishonorably discharged in 1998 for his actions in 1998. Now, I don't have anything more concretely supported than Wikipedia saying that he was discharged for his role in the kidnapping of student activists during the 1998 riots and probably making it a hell of a lot worse. Also, for editing notes, the Muslim call to prayer is going on in the background. It's not usually this loud. It does happen everywhere. The problem is my house is like the same block and across same corners as a mosque, and one of the loudest mosques in the area, or at least it is to me because it's right next to my ears.
I mean, I can hear that in the background, but that's fine. It's not. I can hear you over it.
So I've covered Jokowi. Oh, actually, before I do go into the other team, Jokowi, he's popular as an incumbent largely because his infrastructure projects. He's been building roads across across the length of Java, across the island of Borneo, with the part of which we have is called Kalimantan, and across Papua, which has largely been a neglected part of Indonesia. It's way off in the east. Just lots of name of island toll roads all over the place. He's been developing the merchant marines and also the navy, and also just been trying to develop a good, solid infrastructure. He's been great for the tech industry. He's been pushing the tech industry for years and years and years. It's part of why Jakarta has such a booming IT industry, which I, as a programmer, sort of benefit from, or eventually will if I get a job.
And you've also mentioned to me previously about how hard it is to go home during the holidays. So presumably that's helping.
Oh, yes. So there's this big festival in the middle of, towards the end of the Islamic New Year called Eid al... I'm not going to try to pronounce the Arabic version. The Indonesian version is Eid al-Fitr. The problem with me trying to pronounce the Arabic version is that there's not enough vowels for my taste as an English speaker. But Eid al-Fitr is at the end of the Islamic fasting month, Ramadan, and we sort of turned it into this long. It's now 2 weeks of Lebaran, where everybody takes this opportunity to just go home. And because Jakarta and the island of Java in general is packed with people coming in, economic migrants, just Java itself is the size of England and twice the population of Great Britain, probably more than that. Twice the population of the whole UK, actually, because England's, like, I think the bulk of it.
Yeah, the majority of the population is in England, yeah.
Yes. In that same way, but the equivalent would be like the U.S. Going home for Thanksgiving. But in that case, like, it's a big country. Everybody's going home from all sorts of different places. There's a lot of traffic snarls as people go home for the holidays, but it's still relatively spread out for basically the same. But in this case, it's a population. It's 140 million people, about half of which is trying to go home to in other places in Java from Jakarta, or to the other islands, and the ferries get choked up, and the roads get choked up, and the planes are basically full for a week. It is the worst time to travel, basically. It is also the cleanest air Jakarta ever has, because it has half the people, half the cars, and the skies are actually blue. It's amazing. The skies are bluer at other times, obviously, but like you can tell the air quality has gotten better just from half, maybe more of the population of the city is gone or is out of town. And so building all this infrastructure and also allowing the holiday to extend to 2 weeks. I think it was very recent. It was during the Jokowi administration that it was extended this long. And it was a national holiday and not just like informally, I'm going to go because this is the cultural thing. That people have had an easier time going home when they do. And people have an easier time going home when it's like, I'm not going to go during the rush. I'm going to go like a couple of weeks later or a couple of weeks before. So it's been very good there. It's been very good for just all the trucks trying to get through, what are basically roads that haven't, I don't think, been updated for trucks since the Dutch. There's a lot of, there's this one road to the west of Jakarta that's like 2 lanes and trucks trying to get through, and the road has to be resurfaced every so often. And you try to go through there in a car at like midnight, and it's just wall to wall trucks trying to get around each other for like miles, because it's 2 lanes, and suddenly one lane is for like 300 meters is just tore up, and you have to get around it somehow. So he's very popular for his infrastructure. He's slightly unpopular for where he has put his infrastructure a little bit. There's on the section of the toll road from Bogor in south of Jakarta to Sukabumi, southeast of Jakarta, which before you had to go up the mountain and through these windy things, and it was complete nightmare. The section that's been completed of that, everybody in Bogor has been rejoicing and praising his name. And also the presidential palace is in there, and he's very popular there because he sort of goes out of the presidential palace and like eats in the street stall, or like has the street vendors come in, rather, for security purposes, have the street vendors come in and like he buys food from them. And he visits all the time. He goes to like inspections of the toll roads that he's building, and he's not just letting people handle it. He's like coming to inspect, and he's coming to see the people, he's coming to listen to people. So he's popular for that reason. What I had meant to get at was that he's popular for his infrastructure. Some of the people who live by where the new toll road is aren't happy. They're throwing fruit at the cars, which sounds funny until a mango breaks through your window.
Oh yeah, yeah. Mangoes aren't light.
No,
it's not like throwing an apple at someone, which could still hurt. But a mango, yeah, mangoes are big.
This is just a story I heard from a friend who lives there. Like, I'm in Jakarta proper, so I thankfully haven't noticed the fruit being thrown at me. Okay, so I was trying to back away from the discussion about fruit, and them being thrown at the thing. So Jokowi's platform has likely been infrastructure. He's also trying to position himself as a Muslim candidate, as opposed to like his connection to the Christian Chinese Indonesian Ahok. In fact, he didn't actually visit Ahok when he was jailed. I think he's trying to, in the public eye, like distance himself from that entire mess. People kind of were mad at him, but I don't blame him. Like, the political climate in 2017 was fraught and extremist and all sorts of crap. It's calmed down by now partly because there's not racial tensions in the middle of an election. There's a lot to unpack there. I do not have the time.
That's fine. We've got more. We can maybe touch on some of this in the actual full episode we'll do after the election, assuming my country is not on fire.
Oh, yeah. I forgot. April 17th is after March 29th. I apologize for forgetting.
It's fine. I mean, we're going to probably have a big bumper episode on the 31st of March, or well, we'll see what happens around then.
Yep. Okay. So, he's trying to position himself as, I've said this sentence like 4 times now, trying to position himself as a Muslim candidate and not really as someone who's sympathetic to like foreign influence, or Chinese Indonesians are seen as foreign even though they've been here for centuries, or non-Muslim influence. So he's been a little bit, at least in public remarks, not great about LGBTQ relationships, but I don't fault him for that, because I doubt the other guy's going to be, I think the other guy's going to be worse, if that's possible. But Indonesia never really condoned homosexuality specifically, but it wasn't really bad about it until maybe about 2017, 2018, and I don't know what the state is now, because I only know like the high profile cases, and there was a couple of those. But I'm going to take you back to August of 2018. So when the candidate teams were being chosen, Prabowo picked an unusual candidate. Vice presidential candidate. I will cover him in a minute. Jokowi picked Maruf Amin, and there was a lot of speculation between two different Muslim clerics, because they had both been invited there, and it turns out like his coalition had disagreed with like the first one, and everybody thought was going to be the guy, and he picked this old Muslim cleric who was known for his hand in the Ahok affair, who had fairly conservative, and it was seen as like a maneuver, like, I am picking one of your own, one of your favored, one of your best known, to people who know who the Muslim clerics are. I'm a Chinese Indonesian Christian. I didn't pay too much attention until now. Muslim clerics, because I want to appeal to you, the people. And I think that did a lot to diffuse the tensions of, is this guy really gonna represent us Muslims when there's like when we're 80% of the 250 odd million people here, Muslim majority, largest number of Muslims in any country. So that was
presumably, you mean greatest percentage.
Greatest percentage, there's a higher percentage. I just mean like literally the largest in number, like in millions and millions and millions of people who are Muslims.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes.
I just would have assumed that would have been another country. Fair enough.
No! We just have the raw numbers. I think like Saudi Arabia is like 90%, but like 80% of 280 million versus, I don't know how many, Saudi Arabia, maybe like 3 million. I don't remember. I would need to look it up. So there are a lot of people involved here who are very concerned about this. And I think that was a good political move. It diffused the tensions. That didn't last for as long as it did. I think it lasted until about the first presidential debate, when Prabowo, who I'm now getting to, started playing the social media game again. Of like, there's a speculation among my friends at any rate, that what his tactic is, the reason his responses have been kind of dumb in the presidential debates, at least from what they're saying, is that he's trying to both malign Jokowi and also make him look a a little dumb, but like a man of the people. So a lot of the people in the middle are going to say both candidates are dumb. Let's not vote. And it's going to be down to the hardliners in on either side. What they're saying is that he's trying to polarize the debate. There's a reason he might want to not fight fair here. As I said earlier, Prabowo is a general, or was a general, a high-ranking general, who was dishonorably discharged for his role in the 1998 riots and the violence there, and kidnapping of student activists during that time. So his reputation is not great. I'm not entirely sure where he got the political capital to be like Here's the thing, by the way, I completely forgot to mention this. 2014, the incumbent SBA had served 2 terms and he was done. Jokowi's presidential, his opposition, he was up against Prabowo. This is their second time duking it out in the, and possibly maybe his last. He's going on maybe he might try again, but depends on if the people backing him want to try for a third time in 2024. We'll see. Jokowi, if he wins in 2019, he's got done 2 terms. He's done. So we'll see. But I don't know where he got the political capital to start a presidential campaign again. But as far as I can tell, his image is, he's trying to present an image, in 2014, this was before Trump, he was trying to present an image of like, he's a strong man, he's gonna bring back rule of law against, I don't remember what the crisis was at the time, he was gonna, I think it was like, though the economy wasn't doing great, and he wanted to bring back like, Suharto style, economic policy so that Indonesia would grow again. Certainly, by the way, I preface this with I think because that is a guess. I don't exactly know what his platform is. And you will see, and I should admit that I have some bias here because I am very much favoring Jokowi partly because his reputation is all the things he's done in the past 5 years, and Prabowo's reputation is 1998, where a lot of the violence was conducted against Chinese Indonesian. I'm part Chinese Indonesian. I don't like him. So that's my take on Prabowo's campaign. But his vice presidential candidate is also very interesting. His name is Sandiaga Uno, which is, his nickname is sometimes Sandy, but he's sort of he's rumored to be like the guy you come to when you need to launder your money.
Oh, yeah. I saw there was something to do with the Panama Papers in there, or the Paradise Papers.
Yes, he's prominent in the Panama Papers. He's like the guy who cooks the books. At least, he's never been formally charged, yada yada, allegedly. But before this campaign, he was vice governor of Jakarta. The vice governor that won in the election just before Ahok got jailed. So it all ties back to the Ahok affair again. Because he was one of the guys on the winning team. He was the vice governor on the winning team with Anies Baswedan. And Anies wasn't really fomenting all of the Islamist and extremist rhetoric against Ahok, but he sort of said, I welcome your support in a sort of, do you remember when Trump did that sort of thing when David Duke supported Trump?
Oh, yeah, where he was like...
Yeah, that sort of thing. It didn't make him exactly popular with the Chinese Indonesians, but but he won anyway because Ahok was at that point in the trial and in the elections, in the campaign, a lot less popular. I think it was close. I think it was like 50% close. Like, maybe not 52-48. I'm remembering those figures from elsewhere. So Ahok won the first round, 43-40-17, but he didn't win a majority. And then he got trounced in the second round because all of the third party, there were 3 candidates at the time, and I won't bother to mention the third one. He did not run a great campaign. But all of those votes went mostly to Anies and Sandi rather than Ahok. So it was 43-40-17, and then it was 42-58. So to cap off a bad year. That was April. In May, he was jailed, and he served. I think he was released in January of this year, so he served like 16. That's not the correct math. He served like 20 months of his sentence. There's a lot more I could go into in the 2017 election. That was fun if you were watching from afar and not like directly invested. But again,
so like Brexit.
Yeah. I'll put this in, and you can put it as like the story is like an extra, I guess. During SBA's term, 2004 through 14, the head of the Corruption Commission was a man named, I'm going to have to look the name up. The Corruption Eradication Commission set up in... Oh, it was actually set up in 2002. So there was an anti-corruption. There was an anti-corruption effort, but this particular body was not set up until 2002. Pardon me. But the head at the time was Antasari Azhar. He was jailed in 2009 on charges of murder.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty big.
He was on suspicion of ordering the murder of a prominent businessman, who was blackmailing Antasari, allegedly, over an affair. He said Antasari said he was framed, and the thing is, he was granted clemency in 2017 by President Jokowi in time for him to attend the gubernatorial election debates. Where I wasn't gonna mention the third candidate, but the third candidate was the son of SBA, Agus Yudhoyono. So every time Agus Yudhoyono would try to do something politically interesting in the debate, and the guy his dad accused of murder was sitting in the audience glaring at him and making a considerable amount of booing noise, he sort of backed off, and his campaign looked weaker and weaker and weaker until he basically only had like 19% of the vote.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I wish I had more anecdotes from the debates, but I'd have to go dig up the old video.
That's fine. But I mean, if you have any links that we can drop in the show notes, send them my way.
Okay, I'll see if I can find the old debate. Oh, the problem is the old debates are going to be in Indonesian.
Oh, there's no like transcription, maybe.
There might be live transcription. I don't know if the subtitles. I'll give it a look. So I've gone too far on mangoes and cars, infrastructure, Prabowo, Sandi, the Ahok affair. Now I can get into what's actually been happening in 2018 and 19 for the campaign we're supposed to talk about.
That's okay. What do we want to do? Do you want to kind of just lead into that, and then next time we can do like the pre-election chat, which will be more about the campaign?
Yeah, sure. I think that makes sense to me. So, things I wanted to cover today, I wanted to list them off very quickly. I never actually said why Megawati was important. Her party is the main one in Jokowi's coalition, so she's still important in the background. SBA is, I think, in one of the ones that's backing Prabowo. So they're still important, but they're supporting roles now. And I don't know how much their politics really comes into it, except for SBA and whatever his policies as like the direct predecessor of Jokowi. I covered Muhammadiyah and NU. Oh, I didn't actually name the extremist organization. That's fine. They don't need a name check. They're basically dead. I don't need to go into 2001 or 1999 or 98. Hang on. Ridwan. Oh, I don't need to talk about Ridwan Kamil, for God's sake. Well, actually, I can go into a little bit. That's more 2019. Yeah, I need more to talk about before 2019. So maybe like later, if Brexit goes awry and people want to hear something other than Brexit while the world's crumbling around them, God forbid, maybe early April. Just trying to. My problem is I write my notes very fast, and my handwriting's not the best. I do not need to cover the Suharto regime. I already did a lot of it. Basically, a lot of people a lot of political dissidents were jailed or disappeared. There was an entire fun acronym for it, Petrus, for mysterious killings. Literally, pembunuhan misterius. It was not a great time. Okay, so I name checked 1965, 1998. We were in a war with Malaysia. I don't know if you heard about that, but that was one of the reasons Sukarno was unpopular. Was he started a war with, like, Malaysia was trying to become a country, and he wanted East Malaysia because that East Malaysia is on the island of Borneo, which we wanted the whole thing. That did not go well, and he was ousted. The Communist Party was blamed for that. That's probably partly because there's some evidence that the CIA was involved.
The CIA overthrowing governments whenever they get the chance, yes.
Yes.
Or at least back in the 70s.
Back in the day, yes. This was 65. This was their heyday. Lots of separatist movements, Papua, and Timor, which became Timor-Leste, and Aceh had a separatist movement, but they became an autonomous region. There's four political parties that are just for the province of Aceh because they're autonomous, and they're on the national ballot anyway, for some reason. I'm not entirely sure how that works. I haven't gone into, like, how the elections are structured, and I would like to talk to Rob about that because I still don't know how an open list proportional representation works.
Well, I'll get him to throw some notes down, and we can do that before. We can do that, like, in the episode before the election instead.
I'll work on a lead-in, but I'm trying to make sure I get on the entire section that is the Suharto regime, the New Order. Have you heard of? And then it's called the New Order. It's like
that sounds
the First
suspiciously
Order.
Star Wars, yeah.
And of course it's in Indonesian, so it's Orde Baru. Let's see.
Oh, I see, from 1966.
What's that?
I looked it up. New Order. The Wikipedia page is actually quite in-depth.
There's a lot more I could talk about. There's a lot more to unpack. It's maybe some months down the line, we could talk more about, like, if this was more of a historical podcast, we could talk about, like, a lot of the history that led up to this, the 1965 coup, the 1998 riots, and all of the fun stuff that leads to all of the fun politics now. But the Wikipedia articles are also fairly comprehensive in that regard.
Well, what we could do is, we had our silly season episodes over the summer. We could do one that's like, we did a historical retrospective of UK politics. Well, there's no reason why we couldn't do one. Because, I know very little about Indonesian politics before I saw your posts on Twitter. So, like, it's interesting, I'm sure. And you can convey it in pretty good English. So people will be like, wow. Like, I think that's part of the problem normally, because people don't, like, people want to hear it in English is basically the problem we have on the internet.
Yeah, that is a problem.
Structural problem with the internet.
Yep. So this is all of the background, or at least a lot of the highlights of the background leading into the election. I've also covered a little bit what happened when the candidates picked their vice presidential candidates. I haven't gone into, like, April's not just the presidential election, it's also the legislative election and how that works. And so sometime in April, I believe you said, we're going to go into, just before the election, we'll talk more about what's happened in the election. Gives me more time to catch up on the presidential debates. They're in Indonesian. I have to translate them in my head. I'll see if I can also find some news articles, to corroborate this and put into your show notes. And then I believe we're going to do a post-mortem.
Yeah, I feel like the post-mortem episode can be like a full episode if you can make that with Rob, and maybe we'll have to record a bit earlier than usual to accommodate you. But that would be really cool if we can do that, like a full hour episode or something. That'd be good.
Okay, before we go, you said you might have questions for me. I've been rambling for an hour, I think it's been an hour now.
Like, I don't have any particular questions, is what I mean. It was just like, if we're recording together, then I can be
okay.
Hey, what about this? But, there's a lot going on, and I don't know enough to really ask anything intelligent, so I'm happy just to let it be like kind of a monologue, and I'll edit it together.
Okay. Thanks very much for the opportunity.
Yeah.
I hope this
No
makes
worries.
some coherent sense in the edit. We'll see. I'll see if I can. I probably won't link the presidential debates or the gubernatorial debates, but I'll see if I can find like articles that summarize them.
Yeah, that'd be good.